That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Okay, hey, welcome to another episode of the Comic Review Show with Sid Part 2. That's me. That's why I pointed to myself when I said that. So let's jump right in. Batmite number 1. I just picked this up because I kind of like Batmite, and it was a really sweet last episode of Brave and the Bold that I saw the other night for the first time. Sorry. This isn't very good, though. Like, what they're trying to do is create kind of a kid-friendly comic that's also kind of got some in-jokes for the older comic readers and stuff. And while I support the idea of that, it's just not very well done. It's got its moments. It's got a couple funny jokes in it, but I would probably not recommend getting any more issues of this. It's just kind of silly, and not in a good way. It's just kind of pointlessly silly. I don't know. It's hard to write a good Batmite. Brave and the Bold certainly did it. But the problem is he's mostly on his own here. Well, I guess not on his own, but he's mostly the primary character here. And the reason that doesn't work is because he's not entertaining on his own. What's entertaining about Batmite is seeing him interact with other people, and Batman only says a couple lines to him in the book. Hawkman's passed out, and so the only people he's interacting with are the villains of the book, and I don't know who they are, and I don't care. They're like some kind of brain people where they take the brains of people and put them in other bodies and stuff like that, and so it's not very interesting. So no, I don't think this is a very good book, and I'm kind of disappointed in it more than anything else, because it could have been fun to do Batmite in the New 52. Like, that's the other thing is, Batmite in the New 52, lighthearted stuff in what's been considered like a really serious universe lately, so starting a Batmite book would seem like an opportunity to really take on that and just fully accept and embrace that it was kind of a silly decision to make it all super dark and gritty. So what you could have done was maybe make a Batmite book where, I don't know, he's talking about just how dark everything seems, or how crazy all the stuff has been in the comics lately. But that's not what we get. We get just kind of a silly, forgettable Batmite book. So yeah. I'm going to save her for the last single issue I talk about. Martian Manhunter number 1. I like Martian Manhunter. I don't know a ton about his universe and continuity and everything. I don't think I'll need to for this book, especially given how it opens. It's not great off the bat, but it is intriguing. Basically, what the premise is that there's like a bunch of terrorist attacks that all happened completely simultaneously. What's it called? The epiphany, Epiphany, whatever that means. So yeah, basically what's going on in this is you have all these terrorist attacks occurring at the same place, not at the same place, at the same time, and Martian Manhunter is, I guess, a part of it. So you've got like this implication of some kind of alien or telepathic network, so we might be getting some more Mars Invade stuff, which is fine. But let me just read some of the opening narration that John Jones has. So he's like saving a plane, and he goes in to try to calm all the people down to somehow make it easier to save. They're kind of vague about it. And one of the passengers looks at him and gets these red eyes, so you get the idea that she's being possessed or something. And then John just transforms into this giant dragon that we see here. And the narration goes, "My name is John Jones, and everything you know about me is a lie that I wanted you to believe. I was created as a weapon of mass destruction and sent here to fool and befriend humanity. I was made to conquer this planet ready for invasion. I am not a superhero. I'm a Martian. And God help you all. My people have come for your planet." So I'm not sure precisely what they're doing. maybe he's like, and later in the book, toward the end of the book, he actually last page of the book rather, that isn't an advertisement. That isn't also setting up, I guess, maybe a villain or something. He goes to someone for help and he asks them to kill him. So I think they're trying to like set up that maybe he's got some kind of programming, or maybe they're just setting up a new status quo for him. So I'm a little on the fence about this. I don't love the premise so far, but it's Martian Manhunter. There's some cool art in it so far. I'm more intrigued by what's set up at the open and close of the book with this Mr. Biscuits guy. Hold on, let me get to the panel of him. That looks cool. I'm more interested in what's going on with him than I am with John Jones so far. But to be fair, this is very much a setup issue, so I don't know. We'll see. I'll probably pick up at least the first story arc of this just to see where it goes, if it's got legs or not. Wonder Woman number 41 with the Finch couple. That's what I'm going to call them from now on. This is really good. It's, like I said earlier, it's returning Diana to where we're more familiar with her as a character, but without dismissing what was done in the Azarella run, which is what makes me really happy. My biggest complaint about this book, and I'll get into more of what I like about it in a second, but I do want to address this before I forget. The reasoning behind the new costume, and I'll show you the first panel with or full page spread with the new costume. The reasoning behind the new costume, I don't love. I like that they decided to give a reason for it, though. Like, it's not just another random costume change like they did before and all that stuff. I like that she's got motivation to do this, and she feels that she needs to because she's embracing all these different roles she's taken on. Superhero, Justice League, God, Queen, all these other things. So, that I like. But, let me just read this. This is her talking with Hephaestus. There we go. Whose name is hard to pronounce. Smith God, for those that don't know. And he starts by saying, I'm assuming that there's a reason behind this change. And she says, I was still just a girl when I first put on this costume and left Themyscira for the world of men. A girl with a lot to prove, to her mother, to the Amazons, to herself. I lost a lot and learned a lot since then about myself and the people around me. I've taken on roles that I never wanted but couldn't refuse. Every day is a struggle to do justice to those roles, while remaining true to myself. This new costume is a symbol of that. It's a reflection of everything I am now. Queen, God, warrior of justice. It's really time for me to leave the girl behind and embrace the woman I've become. I like the idea that she's changing costumes as more of a symbolic thing for herself. That she's trying to embrace all these different things and not just be the Wonder Woman that we've always known, but still stay true to that. That I enjoy. I don't like the talk of it being about her being a girl when she left Themyscira, because I don't agree with that. But it's still minor to the overall reason, I think. Even though it doesn't seem that way, maybe. I can see both sides of an argument here. To her, it's important to show that she's growing and to deal with the fact that she's accepting this and dealing with all the issues that have come up. That's what's been going on since Finch took over the book, and that I really like. And I think it's really good to take that and move forward. I just don't like the language used with the choice of her saying that she was a girl. That's my biggest problem with it. So that's my biggest issue with the book, is a thing that I'm of two minds about. But they're going back and dealing with Donna Troy, name escaped me. Donna Troy, after slaughtering the male Amazons, was put in a prison on Olympus because she was shown the truth of what she did was terrible. And now she's having to deal with and accept that. And I really like that. She has to deal with the fact that she was indoctrinated in just this awful, awful mindset. And And so I like that she's really having a lot of trouble with that. Like, she has this great exchange with Diana at the beginning of the book, and I guess this show is just going to turn into me reading comic books to you. So, let me just find a good place. Here's Diana starting the conversation. I didn't bring you here just to punish you. I wanted to give you the opportunity to rehabilitate yourself, to find out who you are, and then Donna cuts her off. I know exactly who I am. I'm a monster. Misguided and confused? Maybe. Self-indulgent? Definitely. But a monster? No. I bathed... this Donna again. I bathed in the blood of the innocents. I can't change what I've done any more than you can change the truth. You're right. You've done a terrible thing. But that doesn't need to define who or what you are for the rest of your life. That's just really good Wonder Woman stuff for me. Even going back to old comics, the whole point, what Wonder Woman would do with her criminals, or with some of the criminals, that made her significantly different, even though it was kind of kinky, is she would take the criminals that she captured back to Themyscira and rehabilitate them. And so we're kind of getting a bit of that in this. And I like that. That's good stuff. They're also setting up a villain at the end. So far, we don't know a ton about him. Basically, he was planning to blow up a bridge, unless Wonder Woman came to talk to him. And when she did, he tried to attack her, and she, didn't use her powers to stop him, because in her mind, he's just a kid. So she's just trying to, take him down in a non-horrible way that won't leave him, physically broken. But he manages to escape, and then he goes back, and there's some kind of, Lazarus pit-looking thing up here. Move it around a little bit in case there's a glare. Some kind of Lazarus pit-looking thing, and that's making some kind of deal with the kid. It's really vague for right now, but basically what the kid wants is to become the god of war. And so that's really interesting that we're getting a new villain set up that wants something of Diana's. The biggest thing I'm waiting for is for them to go back to the Wonder Woman Rogues Gallery. I want Dr. Psycho or Cheetah or someone to show up in that book within the next story arc or two. That's the only thing I've been waiting for. The Azarella thing was almost one complete story that told the story of the Firstborn as a villain, so I was cool with that. This, so far, has had two story arcs, one dealing with a lot of the fallout from the Azarella book, and now we're moving into the second, which is, again, tied to the Olympus stuff, so that's fine. But I'm really hoping that after this story arc, we get some of her classic Rogues Gallery to start showing up. Superman, Earth 1, Volume 2, only, a year late. I read Earth 1, Volume 1, and I liked it. It had a lot of interesting Superman moments that I really liked. There's just this one scene, and I think I've talked about it several times on Geeky Gentleman, but I'll mention it here. There's this one scene in Earth 1, Volume 1 where he has some kind of Kryptonian technology in his hands, and he, it shocks him as a defense mechanism or whatever, and he goes, so that's what pain is. And I really like that. That's a great take on Superman. It's just he would have no understanding of pain. And so then we move into this, and it's not... I don't like it as much, but it's still really good. I think my biggest problem with it is some of the dialogue is really stilted. It almost feels like he didn't want to have narration in this. I don't think Superman narrates anything himself, does he? I'll have to look through real quick. Hold on. Just flip through a little bit. I'm pretty sure there's no direct narration from Superman. It's all just, there's occasional conversation overlay, basically like voiceover. And that's cool, but no, I don't think there's any direct narration in this book, so I feel like a lot of the dialogue is trying to avoid that, but not trusting the art to communicate what it's doing on its own. So, here's this scene with Parasite, who really cool take on Parasite. I like that. Or his line is, energy, need more energy. And there's just a lot of stuff like that where it's like, not next page, not enough, not nearly enough. Give me your energy, give me everything. It's just a lot of stuff like that feels like they're just really trying to force what's going on and they're not trusting the art to convey it enough. So I feel like maybe if this had, if JMS had more setup in scripting the panels to try to communicate some of this stuff, it would be a lot better. But a lot of the dialogue seems really stilted, so it could either be replaced with narration, either third-person narration, which would probably work better if you don't want Superman narrating stuff, or maybe like jumping around and first-person narration. One sec, sorry. But otherwise, I do like the story. There's a great theme carried through with what power means and who it comes from and how you get it. And that's a brilliant thing to do with Parasite. Because there's this other like subplot with a warlord that kind of bookends this. And that's great. And then there's Superman dealing with being attracted to someone and being afraid to be intimate with them. I don't know why I'm bothering to veil that. Superman's afraid that if he comes inside someone, they'll explode. Which is an understandable fear for Superman. We've all seen Mallrats. So, like, he's afraid of that, and so he's dealing with this woman who lives next door to him now that's very modern woman who's very interested in what she wants, and what she wants is Superman, or Clark Kent in this case, which is nice. Someone's attracted to Clark Kent for being Clark Kent. So that's nice, and so he's dealing with his power there, and he's dealing with feeling powerless in the press room, which is what I like about that too. He writes because it's difficult, because it's something that he's just not naturally good at. Here's the girl that likes him and stuff. So there's a good theme carried through with that. And by the end of the book, almost all of this is wrapped up. But the one thing I don't like how they wrap it up is this stuff with the girl, and I forget her name off the top of my head. They don't say it too many times, to be fair. Basically what happens is she hooks part-time. She says that herself. And so, like, they decide not to do anything to just remain friends because she doesn't want him to be freaked out by that. And so, I don't know, it's not the best way to end that story arc, but it's okay. It's just not my favorite part of it. That's probably the biggest, weakest part that this has beside the dialogue, but the rest of it's really well done. It's just a really good story that's built up. So, I don't know, I guess I'd recommend this. It feels like a really good, almost final draft, if that makes sense. It feels like if we could get maybe just one more rewrite of this and either, like I said, add narration or just make some of the art more, some of the art better communicate what's going on in the story, that would be good. But otherwise, everything else in this is wrapped up fairly nice, and they start to set up the Lex Luthor character for this universe in the backup to this, which is interesting. But yeah, I like this. It's pretty good overall. I wish we could read the full articles. They did this in Earth 1, Volume 1 as well, where we got Superman's article on himself, or Clark Kent's article on Superman. And here we get Lois Lane talking about Parasite and Clark Kent talking about this this other character that was in the book. And they just get, like, cut off halfway or whatever. It's, like, continued on page or whatever. I wish we got the full article. I'd like to see JMS write their writing styles and really show how they're different, but also what they have in common. Alright. Sandman. Absolute Sandman, Volume 2. Yay. Sandman, send me a dream. So this... I've, like I said last week, I've been reading through Sandman, and I think Sandman is proper literature. And what I mean by that is, like, most of the time when I'm reading comic books, I think of it in the same way that I do, a good movie or a good episode of a television show, depending on what it is. I think of it as like, just a fun little light read or something enjoyable. Sandman, however, I think is proper literature. Like, everything that goes on in this book, it's so reverential to the proper canon. It brings up all this classic mythology and through the ages and medieval mythology as well. And it's so reverential to all these great writers of history and also to the modern age. Like, there's a whole thing in this that it feels just like, not Tolkien, a little bit of Tolkien, but more, what's his name? Lewis Carroll. So I think of Sandman as properly in the canon, like, Homer, Dante, Gaiman. That's how I think of this, and it is just so well done. It is an amazing piece of work, and it's beautiful. I mean, I find myself often tearing up while I read through Sandman, and Volume 2, maybe a little less so than Volume 1. Most of Volume 2 is this story about this dream world that's going on, and there's like a war and stuff. And like I said, it felt very Carroll or very Tolkien, depending on your preference, and that's fine. Hold on, what's the name of it? What's the name of the story arc? Come on. Beginning to See the Light. There we go. Yeah, so that's the majority of this, and that's fine. It's still well done. I just I like the stuff with Morpheus on his own more. And I really like, one of the things I love about what Gaiman does with Sandman is it usually goes story arc, single issue, like standalone issue, story arc, standalone issue. And what I love about that is the standalone issues, while they read perfectly well on their own, you don't have to know anything else about the book as you're going through it. Standalone issues still inform the greater story, and that's perfect. Like, it's just 22-page story, but it informs the arc. Not necessarily like in a set-up-y way, though it does that a little bit, but it informs the future stories in a way it's just, here's how these two interacted before the events of the book that we started up. And we get a couple of those issues, like this story about the Emperor of America, which is just awesome. It's so sweet. Twain shows up in this, and yeah, that's perfect. 3 Septembers in a January. This is about like this guy who considered himself the Emperor of America, even though he was like a homeless person. Really good stuff, and it informs the wider story. And you get the same thing with the issue previous, though it doesn't involve Morpheus as much. Like, he's only in one scene. That's about the Emperor Octavius toward the end of his life. And that's interesting, too. August. So that's cool. 3 Septembers in January. And then we start moving into that. And there's a couple other issues here. God, what was it? There's the whole Key to Hell thing at the beginning of this that I really love as well. And that was brilliant stuff where Lucifer gave up hell and locked it up and gave Morpheus the key, and he had to deal with all the fallout from that, which is genius. And that's really what starts up the book, more or less. And then we got some Marco Polo stuff in here too at the very end. That's the last story of the book, and that was great too. So the two big stories in this that we got were the Key to Hell and then the Alice in Wonderland like stuff. And that, like I said, both of it great. We also got another one shot, like kind of a little Russian folktale thing with Morpheus involved, which is just great. It was cool to see Baba Yaga. I had no idea who that was until about a year ago when Milan did a fairy tale story on his old channel, just talking about Baba Yaga and the story of Valicia. I can't remember her name. Just a little girl that met Baba Yaga, and that was cool. What's the name of this story here? The Hunt. Nice little one-issue, one-and-done thing. And then we get the same thing with this Marco Polo story, Soft Places. One-and-dones. So you get, one or two standalone issues that really don't, add anything, doesn't continue the plot. It just informs stuff. It informs background, or you should see character interaction. That's the stuff that I love the most. I like the continuing story arcs. No, I don't like the continuing story arcs. I love the continuing stories, the arcs that come up in this book. But honestly, it's the one and dones that make me just absolutely adore Sandman, because it's so good. It's so well done, and it's in all its reverence for all these classical things. It's still incredibly modern. Even for the 90s, it was still ahead of its time. We're dealing now with issues of transgenderism and just LGBT in general. And Gaiman was pushing that envelope back in the early to mid-90s with Sandman. There was, a character in this... there's a transgender character in this story arc, and she was a really impassionate and really important character, and you get to know and love her, and then it goes all George R.R. Martin, and you immediately miss her, and you deal with all the humanity of these people, and that gets, pushed aside so often, so it's really special to see how well Gaiman can handle it. But yeah, this more than anything else I think I've ever read deserves a place in the canon. If the literary society ever decides to get the stick out of its ass, Sandman should go in the canon before anything else, because absolute, beautiful, brilliant genius. If you consider yourself a comic book fan and you haven't read Sandman, do yourself a favor and do it, because it's just the best stuff I think I've ever read from comic books. Maybe it's because Gaiman's amazing, I don't know, but it's so well done. It's just beautiful. Alright, so that was this week's episode of Comic Reviews. I need a better name for that. Someone leave comments down below about suggestions for names for this series. Also, single issues. If you have a continuing book that's coming out, leave it in the comments below that you'd like me to pick up. I'll pick up at least one issue of it and try to read it. If I like it enough, I'll add it to my pull list. Darth Vader is getting added to my pull list, for example. So yeah, just leave that in the comments below. Trades or graphic novel suggestions I'll take as well, but I'm right now those are kind of on the back burner until I get through a bunch of other trades that I got. Just to remind everyone what else is upcoming. One moment. Should be talking about this, or at least the Rorschach. Now I'll probably talk about the whole thing. I'll talk about this on next week's episode, getting into Rorschach's Before Watchmen story, which, Azzarello here, he keeps coming up on the show. This is on my list, probably, depending on how far through that I get, this might end up on next week's video as well. This has been on my list for a while, so I want to get into it. And that's Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, in case you're wondering. This is Green Lantern, The Life Equation. I want to read this as well, so that's on my list. And then Zorro the Dailies, the first year. This should be interesting to get into as well. But yeah, those are on my list for right now. I'm still keeping a lookout for Godzilla the Half-Century War, because that was requested. And I'm in a bit of a Spider-Man mood, so if someone has a Spider-Man arc or something that they know is out there and easy to find, let me know in the comments below. But everyone, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my comic reviews for this week. I hope I convinced you to maybe pick up some of the books. The Wonder Woman book in particular, probably my favorite thing that I read this week, not counting Sandman, of course. The Wonder Woman book was really good. I think it's a really good jumping on point, because they kind of, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff that happened in the Azzarello run that they're still dealing with and talking about But it does seem to be a really good jumping on point. So if you're wondering about the Wonder Woman book, pick it up now because it's really this is probably the lightest it's going to be for a while now. Anyway, we'll see you next week, and until then, have a good time.